This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
I am here with the hosts from all 13 CityCast podcasts through the magic of Zoom. Hello, y'all.
Hello from Nashville.
So just to have a little icebreaker and so people get a sense of all your different voices, I'm asking because I'm not sure of the answer. What do you call the people of your city? Let's start in Austin.
Austinites.
Boiseans.
Chicagoans.
Washingtonians.
Denverites.
Houstonians.
Las Vegans.
Madisonians.
Philadelphians or Johns.
Nashvillians.
Pittsburghers.
Portlanders.
Salt Lakers.
Nashvillian was the one that surprised me there. I didn't know that. I thought you were Nashvilleites.
Oh, that'd be cute, but nope.
I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast. As you may know, CityCast has daily local podcasts, not just in your city, but in 13 cities around the country. Our hosts are America's greatest focus group because they're the people who are on top of the most interesting and important happenings in American cities. So occasionally, we gather all of our podcast hosts together to talk about what's going on in their cities. It's a chance for us to learn from each other, to hear about creative local problem solving that might work in your hometown, and to commiserate about the stressors that are affecting most of our cities. Unaffordable housing, over-tourism, and bike lanes. Always a fight about the bike lanes. So, it's Friday, June 20th. I'm David Plotz. And here's what the entire country is talking about. So I'm going to start our tour of CityCast's 13 cities right here in my hometown of Washington, D.C., because we're here experiencing something here that's been kind of locally surprising, but also seems to be happening in other cities. And that's a retreat from progressive urban policies, and not all because of Trump. So, hello, Mike Schaefer, host of CityCast DC. What is happening in DC?
So after a decade or so, the city's economy was healthy. The city had come back from these sort of terrible depths of the 80s and 90s. The city government, particularly people in the city council, really pushed through a bunch of fairly progressive legislation. There was a family leave benefit added. There was a lot of new restrictions on police officers and excessive use of force. There was literally a streetcar. And we have, in the last, year and a half, really seen a falling away from that. There was a crime spike post-COVID. The mayor of the city, who's kind of a more Bloomberg kind of figure, a much more moderate person, she had always been skeptical of some of the policing reforms, and the sort of progressive bloc really lost out in that one. They looked pretty bad because they looked fairly unsympathetic to people, particularly in poor neighborhoods, who had been victims of crime. And then since the Trump administration has come in, because it is a real crisis for the biggest industry of the city, lots and lots of people losing jobs in government, and all the attendant worries about the local economy, she's managed to push through a lot of stuff that's sort of really quite clearly pro-business legislation, taking away a lot of the green initiatives or seeking to take them away. And I think she's got a strong hand in this, pushing through a stadium that at a different point might have been called a giveaway to rich people. When I first started covering Washington, it was sort of the tail end of the strident government of the 70s and 80s. And cities across the country started electing these pro-business mayors like Rendell and Philly. And now the sort of same turn away from the progressives is happening again.
And you're saying it's not just Trump?
No, it's in fact, if Trump's role is simply as sort of an accelerant of the bad local economy that is giving the pro-business side of the political divide kind of a piece of evidence that they can use to say we need to cut taxes or whatever it is they've always wanted to do. Being accused of being on Trump's side is actually the most effective counter to that.
So, Mike, I obviously live here in D.C. I am really curious, Claudia Meza, you were the host of CityCast Portland. The topic you flagged, it's not exactly the same, but it's another case where you have a law that seemed like a progressive or liberal law that is being rolled back in a kind of curious way.
Yeah, I mean, well, so something my team has been following these past few years are the ups and downs of Oregon's now oddly controversial bottle redemption bill. Since 1971, when it passed, it's been kind of a point of pride for Oregonians because it was the first bottle redemption law in the nation. And it's a very influential piece of environmental legislation. 9 other states adopted a version of that law, but Oregon consistently has the highest redemption rates, as high as 87%, because a big part of our bottle bill is that pretty much all retailers selling beverages with redeemable containers have to take empties as long as they're open. So if you're a 24-hour convenience store, you're hand counting that ish, like empties at 3 a.m, sometimes all by yourself if you're working alone. And that's one reason why the law started causing issues these past few years, because the whole point of the law originally was to curb littering. But we all know it's now become a way for many people to either supplement their income or survive on the streets. Couple that with rising homeless rates, a fentanyl crisis, and our retailers were flooded at all hours. And because a hit of fentanyl costs roughly 10 cans, which someone calculated, dealers started opening up shop outside these retail establishments. It was creating so much chaos that our governor actually allowed a few of the hardest hit stores downtown to stop accepting cans altogether. So this year, Oregon lawmakers approved key changes to our bottle bill, which include allowing for alternative redemption sites, which we didn't have before. Like, we had like a handful of official bottle drops because everybody was accepting them. So now they're like, we should probably get more of these, including mobile sites such as trucks that travel to different neighborhoods. Nonprofits can now run them, and stores can now finally refuse to accept bottle returns after 8 p.m. So when you're saying, David, like, oh, so much change, they're just like, can you not come at 4 a.m? So there's that. And now they can refuse hand counting after 6 if they're located near one of these new alternative sites. So they're hoping this relieves the pressure on retailers, particularly downtown. And there's so much more, but that's basically the gist. But the bill seems like a happy compromise because many retail organizations were calling for the death of the bottle bill.
Claudia, this is Megan in Pittsburgh. I have not recovered from the valuation for fentanyl to cans. Like that equation. Oh, my God.
That is blowing my mind.
$1 a hit here.
Yeah, see, in Vegas, we measure it in copper wire that comes out of street posts and stuff. So,
wow. That's crazy. Wait, does every city have a different valuation system?
It's Bree in Denver. We just made it illegal to, I think you can't get cash back at scrap yards because it was mostly because of catalytic converter issues, but it also deals with the copper wire issue.
So that was an alternative. Was there like, what if we don't give them money and we give them food vouchers? And that was something that was being thrown around. And I actually think that our legislature did a really good job of a quick fix and a really short turnaround because everyone seems sort of happy. And I'm like, that's actually pretty good. Well, we'll see how this one blows back, though.
All right, there's probably no greater symbol of progressive city government than the dedicated bike lane. But in Houston, Texas, they're disappearing. They're literally being paved over, right? Raheel Ramzan-Ali, host of CityCast Houston.
Yeah, that's right. And we love our cars in Houston. We're a sprawling city. Everyone drives, but we have made the effort to put more bike lanes in. And most Houstonians agree that bike lanes are good. They're safe. And there's been studies done that these bike lanes help out with safety. But they are now being taken out and paved over because of our city's newish mayor, John Whitmire. So Houston's mayor is turning back on Vision Zero, removing bike lanes, removing physical concrete barriers, ripping out these things called armadillos that separate cars from bikes. And when you drive over them, they make these really loud noises so cars don't hit cyclists. And he's doing this while the city is struggling with its budget. Like, it is bad right now. The city has spent millions of dollars on these projects already, and now they are just straight up taking them out without any input from any stakeholders. And it's a move that is seemingly driven by Mayor Whitmire and his inner circle who just don't like bike lanes. And it's gotten so bad, y'all, that bikers here are holding funerals by lanes that have been removed. There have been protests around the city. But here's the kicker. In a bizarre move, Mayor Whitmire thought it would be a good idea to speak at our annual Tour de Houston bike race. And guess what happened? He got booed relentlessly. How about some heads up awareness here? It is so crazy what is happening here when one man just decides, like, that's it. we're done. And it's obviously important because of the safety aspect. But what does it mean when a city literally just paves over its safety improvements because of one man?
Are there actually people who bike in Houston?
Yeah, there
That was
are.
going to be my question.
Yeah, surprisingly, there are a lot of people who bike from the wards, from the outside wards. That's what we call our neighborhoods right outside downtown, into other wards, into one of the big parks that we have, Memorial Park. You've got Herman Park. So yeah, people are using these bike lanes, not only for recreation, but also just to get to work.
This is Nikki from Austin. They would burn our city down if they tried to take our bike lanes.
I know.
We are so serious about our bike lanes. I mean, like, this is kind of blowing my mind a little bit, honestly.
Yeah, this is Bianca in Madison, and we're regularly named like one of the most bikeable cities in the country. And I will say that there are just as many haters of bikers as there are like bike folks. And I remember
so many nods when you say that, Bianca.
And my partner is one of them. And I'm just like, okay, we need this. But I heard from a city transportation planner that someone once called the like big bike, like the industry voice of bikes is completely taking over Madison. And it's hilarious.
This is Jacoby in Chicago, and our city is trying to get more serious about adding bike lanes, as over the last few years, and opposite of Madison, we have not been rated as one of the most bike friendly. And as somebody who bikes a lot around the city, whether I'm using Divvies or my own, Divvy is our sort of local bike program, or my own, I am seeing the growth of more protected bike lanes, but we have such aldermanic control where like each neighborhood ward boss is able to control at what pace bike lanes get put up. So our maps are so inconsistent across the city. And as you all may have heard, the Trump administration and the Department of Transportation is trying to cut off funding for expanded bike lanes across the country. So our small little expansion may be slowing down.
This is Lindsay from Boise. That is so wild to me that a progressive area is rolling that back, because as somebody who lives in an incredibly red state, we are doing the opposite. We've had so many fatalities of pedestrians and bikers that we are finding ways to protect them because we are not a biker pedestrian friendly area. So it's wild to me that a progressive area like Houston is rolling that back when we're doing the opposite as a very conservative red area.
Lindsay, you know about the Idaho stop, this famous term? The Idaho pioneered this idea that bikers should not have to stop at stop signs and red lights, as they can treat them as sort of yields. And it's called the Idaho stop. So you guys are
we
famous.
recently talked about it because it can be good and it can also be really terrible. So that's a very controversial topic in Boise.
I know you guys. We could talk about bike. Maybe we should just do it. We should just do a bike lane.
We really should.
We should just do a bike lane episode. Yeah, we should.
I've been holding back in Portland just because I don't want to take it over.
All right, listeners, we're going to schedule a full bike lane all hosts episode one day. All right, but there's not just bike lanes. Bike lanes are not the only things that people are trying to do to make their cities better. I want to talk about some other creative but sometimes super divisive ideas for making cities awesomer. So I want to start with David Figler in Las Vegas, where everyone except possibly David Figler is excited about a plan to take a bunch of federal land and allow people to build houses on it.
Not everyone. Okay, David, let's talk about sprawl and development. Las Vegas has one of the most acute affordable housing crises in the country. We're almost 80,000 units short, and that number doesn't diminish. People are still moving here at double the national average. There were a handful of potential solutions passed in 2023 by our legislature, which is majority Democrat, but our Republican governor vetoed all of them. So he had to come up with a response, and his response: let's open up outlying federal lands in the desert and mountains to developers, and maybe they'll build more housing. So about 80% of land in Nevada is owned by the feds, so BLM, et cetera. Interestingly, it's been a mostly bipartisan push since the governor announced it, that started with heavy lobbying on President Biden to expedite the release of these lands. Now, conservationists have been split, mostly because there's a federal law called SNPLMA from 1998 that keeps the revenue in Nevada for infrastructure and allows negotiations. Although, and I'm looking at Utah, a recent push from Utah's congressional delegation has been trying to bypass that law so that all the sale of federal lands goes to the feds, not to Nevada. Anyway, proponents of opening up more land cite studies that they say, look, we're just running out of space. But opponents have pointed out that there's ample infill, that there's too much strain on infrastructure with sprawl, and that all those studies are skewed because they ignore endangered species, and this alleged need for new development and housing is based on a desire for single-family homes alone. So that's where we are with that.
This is Allie in Salt Lake. David, if you ever need a friend to say SNPLMA with, I think I might be your only buddy on this episode right now. But funny enough, you mentioned Utah's congressional delegation being all in on this. I think the co-sponsor of that effort to get that in Trump's bill, which it failed, is Celeste Malloy, who, incidentally, is Ammon Bundy's cousin. Ammon Bundy, if you're unfamiliar, yes, armed, anti-federal government, anti-public land. You might call him a revolutionary, currently hiding out in Utah, but not hiding out because no one will arrest him. He's just running a storefront.
There you go.
This is Lindsay from Boise. He also ran for governor of Idaho and got more than 100,000 votes here. So, and
they also stormed buildings in Oregon. So
I was about to say, I don't want to bring it back to Portland, but we knew him when? Back in 2016. It was the occupation of the Mahler National Wildlife Refuge.
Not to stand up for sprawl, but look, everyone, there's an overwhelming amount of support in your state. Like everything I've ever seen in Las Vegas is at sprawl. Like people seem to like it. That's why they moved to Las Vegas, so they can sprawl out there. Like why stop it now?
I mean, man,
why not let people have the houses that they want to have in the desert?
Well, first of all, there's no guarantee that houses are going to be built, let alone affordable housing. The idea is maybe it'll increase the stock and that'll drive down prices. But bottom line, it's the desert, David. I mean, if you want to have a mountain lion sort of doing a confab with your shih tzu in the back porch, go for it. But there's also this immense infrastructure cost that people are not talking about to, A, take over lands that the federal government has been stewarding for all these years on their dime, but also when you build a community out in the middle of nowhere, you have to build firehouses and roads. There is energy that is expended for the precious water to go out that way. I mean, there's so much that is not talked about. And also single-family homes. Come on.
Yeah, David.
Yeah, David.
Yeah, David.
Yeah, David. Okay, all right. Just to get you guys off my back, I'm going to go to Denver. Bree Davies, we heard from you a second ago, host of CityCast Denver. Ever since I've known you, Bree, I've heard you've been talk about the 16th Street Mall. So what is it? What is happening there that is interesting for the rest of us?
This is so embarrassing because I feel like this is the level of Denver's ire is over a mall. So I guess the mall moniker is where we'll get to, but it's been closed for many years for a $175 million renovation, which is, we love a boondoggle.
What is it, though?
It is a 13-block outdoor mall, pedestrian walkway. It was a trend in urban planning about 40 or 50 years ago to build these outdoor malls, and we debuted ours in 1982. It's been contentious because it's closed to cars, and Denver also loves cars. But the big contention right now is that we spent $175 million and it doesn't look that different, but we're supposed to be real stoked about it. And they just unveiled a new name for the 16th Street Mall recently. It is 16th Street. So they paid a firm $100,000 to knock the word mall off of it because apparently it confused people very much that it was an outdoor mall, even though DC has a national mall, which I think we understand is not an indoor mall. And it was just the big to-do was the name had changed. But part of this is this drive by our current mayor, Johnston, to make downtown more appealing, right? We need to get people downtown. We've had some high-profile crimes over the last couple of years. Fatal stabbings happened in the last year. There was this guy chasing people with a PVC pipe a couple years ago, which has just hung on to this how people feel locally about the 16th Street Mall, but the city is intent on making it a tourist destination. And for us, it's sort of just like the butt of jokes. Like, yeah, I guess I could go to the 16th Street Mall if I want to go to the Cheesecake Factory, which is probably its longest running tenant at this point. But a third of the businesses are vacant, and they're just putting all this money and energy into making it better. And many of us in Denver are skeptical if it's going to make a difference at all.
BRB, becoming a consultant.
Allie, listen, I worked in planning before this job, and consulting is the dream. I wish I worked for this company that made $100,000 dropping the word mall.
I have to say that having been in Denver, I was confused by the name 16th Street Mall.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
I mean, you're proving their point. I guess to me, it's like Denver loves a colloquial marker for how long you've been here. So now if you call it the 16th Street Mall, we know that you've been here long enough to have called it that. And we have a lot of things that we refuse to call by their names. And I am one of those people that will never stop calling it a mall.
But listen, this is Mike from DC. I hate to be sympathetic to a boondoggler, but you worked in planning. Isn't like, at least for us, the lack of people coming downtown because some people work from home now is viewed as like an economic crisis. We don't have a wage tax here, so people like if they're not spending money on lunch and stuff, it's real bad for schools and everything else. So is this like part of a scheme to try to lure more people downtown?
It's 100% the scheme, because also we have this crazy vacancy rate at office buildings downtown. But in some of our other sort of office building-y areas, like we have an area called Cherry Creek, their offices are booming. People don't want to be downtown. But I think the big thing right now is there's no housing options downtown. And this idea to convert office buildings, which we talked about with my old boss on a former show, it's almost impossible to turn some of these 70s and 80s buildings into housing. So it remains to be seen if this mall is going to be the solution.
So I want to go to Austin. Nikki Devon, we heard from you already, the host of CityCast Austin. Whenever I go to Austin, I'm amazed at the amount of traffic and the spaghettiness of your highways. But it sounds like you all have a plan to change that.
I mean,
maybe.
Yeah, we could call it a plan. So I-35, Interstate 35 is the highway that divides Austin, and it's getting this huge facelift that will take a lot of the highway underground. And the city just approved spending $104 million to build support structures that would make it possible to build 4 parks over the underground parts of the interstate at some point in the future. But the city is also facing a $33 million deficit this year because sales tax and property taxes aren't coming in as high as expected. So the question everybody is asking is, do we really need parks over the highway? And especially since there's not technically actually parks. They're not even parks yet. We're just giving money for support structures in case we want to build these parks in the future at some point. And it's complicated because the highway was created to segregate. Like, it was created to keep Black people out of the West Side. And now the East Side is heavily gentrified. And so all of a sudden there's talk of connection and bridging the gap and, making things better in the city. It's already being done in Dallas. Dallas has Kyle Warren Park, and it's generated like $660 million in tax revenue since its creation in 2014. So like some Austinites are like, okay, maybe this is a good idea. Maybe Cap and Stitch will work. And it can usher in this new era and make Austin a better place to live and also create revenue. But then a lot of people are like, but we ain't got that money. Where we getting this money from? Because we are in a deficit. So yeah, that's what's going on for us.
Nikki, this is Raheel from Houston. I lived in Austin. It's my second favorite city in Texas. I went to UT, so I know exactly what's happening. It's crazy, but maybe in Dallas it works, but in Austin there are so many other beautiful parks and just more fun parks.
I cannot believe
that
we have a bunch of CityCast hosts who are being like, no, let's not bury a highway and let's not have a park.
No, bury the highway, but why are we
David,
building a park?
We have so many parks. We have so much green space. We have so many parks. I love it. It's my favorite part of our city, but come on now.
This is Bree in Denver. We did the same thing, and I find it terrifying. I don't want to be on a park over a highway where we watch people's cars catch on fire. This happened it's the same situation. It's a segregated neighborhood that we promised we weren't going to do this to anymore, and then we expanded the highway and eminent domain. A family lost their homes 2 different times in eminent domain because of the situation.
Wow.
So I'm not a fan either.
Yeah, Bianca and Madison here. All I hear is segregation, but make it beautiful.
Exactly. Yes, Bianca. Yes. That's exactly it.
Paint Care has 3 simple rules to help you reduce paint waste. 1, buy the right amount of paint for the job. 2, use up what you have. And 3, recycle the rest at conveniently located drop-off sites in your neighborhood. Paint Care even offers direct pickups for households and businesses with more than 100 gallons of leftover paint. Learn more or find a paint drop-off site near you at paintcare.org/3simplerules. The 2025 Invent Oregon Finals are taking place on Friday, June 27th. It's Oregon's only statewide collegiate invention competition. It's also the culmination of an 8-week program that provides students with essential tools that include funding and mentors to prepare them to present their inventions to their peers and industry experts and key players in Oregon's entrepreneurial ecosystem. They're also vying for their share of $30,000 in cash prizes. So come see some of Oregon's brightest minds battle it out on June 27th at the University of Portland on Willamette Boulevard. Get your free tickets on Eventbrite. The link is in our show notes.
All right. Some of the most interesting ideas in cities are not government spending. They're not business-driven, government-driven. In Pittsburgh, Megan Harris, host of CityCast Pittsburgh, you have a grassroots movement to change your city by getting rid of your owner of your baseball team.
So his name is Bob Nutting. He is a billionaire. He used to own a bunch of local things, but he has divested from a few of them lately, including like a big ski resort near here. We have skiing in Pittsburgh. But it's given people hope that there might be like some minor, small cause for celebration for the Pittsburgh Pirates because the team is just abysmal. And Pittsburgh does not take that well. We are a city of champions. Winning is part of our identity. I'm literally wearing a shirt that says it.
Trinae, there's Trinae. Yeah.
Eat it,
Fly,
Eagles fan.
fly.
But it's gotten so bad over here that now there's this grassroots effort over here trying to appeal to government officials, to sports executives, to try and get the owner of the Pittsburgh Pirates to sell the team. And as the lease negotiations are starting up, because it's a multi-year process, they've gotten pretty creative. So the guy leading it used to work in the mayor's office a long time ago. He's really smart. He's petty and he's so mad. And he says that we have some leverage right now. So last summer, they started with these mysterious billboards that said sell the team or our team, not his. People have started wearing T-shirts with those slogans to games. 2 random kids held their own like mini protest on the steps of City Hall with like big steins that said honk if you hate Bob Nutting. Another guy bought a ticket to another team's playoff game last year with the sell the team T-shirt and sat right behind home plate just so he'd be angry and pissed on national television for 3 straight hours. And now that baseball's back this year, they're getting even weirder. Like they've done airplane flyovers. Chants are breaking out at random places. There was one at the last Penguins game I went to this year, our hockey team. There was a big arena event with the national sports podcaster Pat McAfee where chants broke out and like he even acknowledges it on stage in the middle of his taping. There was a golf tournament in South Carolina hours from here. And someone waits until that quiet moment right before the big shot, the winning shot, I will say, and screams out of nowhere, "Fire Bob Nutting." And you know that guy got ejected.
Worth it.
I love that this is catching fire and people are so mad and trying to find any amount of hope they can for a team that used to be incredible. 5 World Series, but has not had even a wild card berth in over a decade.
Oh my God. I'm sitting here in a White Sox jersey over here rooting for this cause. The owner of the White Sox is notoriously Jerry Michael Reinsdorf. He also owns the Chicago Bulls, and I will see your 5 championships and say 6 championships. And we over here celebrating 20th anniversary after, or 30th anniversary after 30th anniversary after 30th anniversary with no sense of championship hopes in sight. And he's floated the idea of maybe selling the White Sox. You know that pressure billionaires do to try to force themselves.
Because you have to have an owner in mind to get the current guy out. Like that's part of the game.
No, and that's never going to happen.
This is Brianne Denver. I have to jump in because we have such a similar situation. We have a sell the team situation, but 2 things have happened recently. The Rockies are one of the worst teams in the MLB, the worst, but ticket sales through the roof because it's jokingly the best bar in the city. Coors Field sells out no matter what because people love to hang out there. And so the Monforts who own it, they're like cattle people. They don't care. They have no reason to. But also a guy just sued the Rockies because he got hit in the head with a ball and he blamed the team being so terrible.
Well, and I think part of the thing that's undergirding all of this is that they're also pissing off fans in different ways. So, like, for example, they were doing a brick remodeling thing in front of the arena. People paid $75 to $150 for these in memoriam bricks, like with their pappy's name on them, 25 years ago, and the team just quietly disappeared them. A TV station found the bricks at a recycling center. They just disposed of them and didn't tell anybody. And so it's not just the on-field performance. We have one of the best pitchers in baseball right now. We thought we had a chance. They're ruining it, and now they're doing all these unforced errors off the field too.
All right. It is time for we're going to have a little dirty soda palate cleanser here. We're going to go to Salt Lake City. For a very different kind of story from Ali Vallarta, the host of CityCast Salt Lake. Ali, your story is just really moving and different.
It's moving across the country. I want to tell you about a woman who is sweeping our state and now the nation posthumously. Her name is Julia Reagan. And though she has been described throughout her life as painfully shy, her grieving husband has put up 60 billboards around Utah and 300 outside of Utah because he is the billboard patriarch. Reagan Outdoor Advertising is the company, commemorating her life. They feature her face, a photo of her, and they say, "In loving memory of Julia Reagan." And I cannot underplay how much this woman has become the matriarch of our state. And these went up last summer, so they perfectly timed with Charlie XCX's I'm So Julia. That was, of course, the calling card. It still is here. She is in Iowa. She's in Nevada. She is in Indiana. I actually had a friend who was in Mankato, Minnesota recently and was like, oh, my God, guess who's here? It's Julia. So the thing about this that's interesting is when these first went up, I think we all found it to be curious and maybe a little suspicious. Who is this woman? Why is she everywhere? And we learned about their love, and it's sweet. This is a grieving husband who has the power to make sure that he can see his wife's face everywhere, and he did it. And they were supposed to be up for 2 months, and I think we all thought that they stayed up because Bill just loved seeing Julia become monoculture in their home. And then they filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the University of Utah Hospital, which was responsible for caring for Julia before she died. And the lawsuit alleges that she was not being checked on enough. And the state started to pivot and wonder if this was a master plan, a sort of a genius way to endear her to all of us before filing this lawsuit. And now I will say, half of Utah is getting Julia Reagan tattoos and drumming up Julia Reagan Halloween costumes. And half of Utah is on Reddit being like, this is weird. This is kind of icky. She was painfully shy. How would you feel if after your death you became the subject of a lawsuit and your face was all over the country?
Nikki from Austin, I just want that kind of love, to be honest. If you ain't put my face on billboards across the country, then we don't need to be together. That's it.
Yeah, I was going to state, this is Marie from Nashville. I'd like it to be known I would like some billboards with my face on it when I pass. But it has to be when I was in my early 20s, please.
This is Raheel from Houston, and Julia hasn't made it down here, but I Googled the billboard, and this looks like it's something from Nathan For You or Arrested Development.
It looks
this
like
doesn't
David
look
Lynch. It looks like David Lynch to me, honestly, when I see this.
She's always in a fit. So it's a gown and pearls, a Panama jacket, and a blazer. And she recently got refreshed. So now she has new photos, new outfits.
Wait, hold on. She's dropping billboards like Tupac was dropping songs after his death.
Mm-hmm. And they're supposed to come down, but we're told that they will come back every year in memoriam for a month.
What? So, Allie, just to tie this up, do you end feeling this is sweet, or there's something slightly sour to it?
Wild.
I think
this is wild.
I've been down a lot of alleys with this. It's been a year for me and Julia. I think two things. I think one, oops, billboards work. Every city is fighting billboard wars. And that's as much amazing. I briefly lived in Vermont. As much as I'd love to go the way of banning them, it seems like they work. And so there's that. And then the other thing is, I just think grief is maddening. And that's the piece of this story that's like really touching, is whether you like the billboards or not, I think we've all grieved before. And like grief makes you kind of crazy.
This episode is sponsored by Babbel. Have you ever picked a vacation spot based on where you won't need a phrase book? With Babbel, the language barrier no longer has to hold you back. You can start speaking a new language with confidence thanks to Babbel's conversation-based techniques, which quickly teach you useful words and phrases about the things you actually talk about in the real world. Babbel has more than a dozen languages available for you to learn at your own pace, with material tailored to your individual proficiency level, interests, and time availability. I'm David Plotz, CEO of CityCast, and I've been learning Spanish with Babbel. What I really love about learning Spanish with Babbel is that it works with me where I am. The app and the website keep track of what I've learned. They help me review what I probably forgot from last time, and always is keeping me engaged with a new challenge based on actual conversations I might have in Spain or Mexico or Colombia, especially food conversations, because I love food conversations. So get talking with Babbel. I want you to learn another language, so I'm teaming up with Babbel to give you 55% off subscriptions, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/CityCast, spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Test, check 1, 2. You know you need unique New York. You know you need unique New York. Does that sound all right? Ah, that's better. You can always tell something's missing when you get isolated results, like AI that's only right for one of your systems. Get AI that can work across your data and applications. Learn more at IBM.com. The AI built for business. IBM.
Before we get to the back half of this very special show, I want to invite you to become a member of CityCast by going to membership.citycast.fm. So members, we call them CityCast neighbors, join us for in-person events with our local hosts, with all these folks. They get shouted out on the podcast. They get to shout out local businesses they love. They get ad-free podcasts. They get a special look-ahead events email, and all that's all just for $10 a month. And mostly you will get to support a local media venture that is making your city a little bit better every day, covering truly local stories that wouldn't get covered otherwise or don't get covered otherwise, and building community. So please become a CityCast neighbor today by going to membership.citycast.fm right now. And if you sign up today, you will also get a CityCast mug from your city. That is membership.citycast.fm. So Allie, you're one of our best member pitchers. How did I do there? Was that okay?
7 out of 10, David.
How would you improve it?
Okay, here's what I'll say. You lost your sense of urgency. This is an urgent request. We can make the show every day forever and wake up with you every morning forever, like Julia. But in order to make that happen, you have to become a CityCast Salt Lake member. So there is a little bit of urgency here. I think you forgot that.
Thank you. Membership.citycast.fm. All right. Another local hero, Jacoby Cochran. We've heard from you already, host of CityCast Chicago. The Pope is from your city. What does that mean?
It means that as the white smoke cleared from the chimney above the Sistine Chapel in Vatican City and billions around the world watched in anticipation, I was sitting in my room texting our producer Simone Alisea and Michelle Navarro, y'all, they picked a bro from Chicago. And Simone immediately responded, get the F out of here. And within moments, millions of Pope Leo XIV memes were born. I saw him footworking on the south side. I saw him eating hot dogs on the north side. I saw him asking people like the State Street preacher for change on the west side. And in that moment, this story that felt abstract, that felt like a Hollywood production, was our story. All of this celebration, the adulation, but also the deep questioning, rightful criticism of the church and the Pope. And this is personal for me, not only as a confirmed Catholic from the South Side who spent most of my life in a Black Catholic school, but someone with family in Dalton where his childhood home was and is now largely a Black community that has been disenfranchised and divested from for decades as everything from manufacturing to malls have disappeared. the story of so many communities and neighborhoods and many of our cities. And in recent years, Dalton's name has been dragged through the headlines, and now there's this big push to preserve the Pope's childhood home. And folks wonder if his childhood parish, which has been shuttered for a while, will be brought back. There's going to be a mass at Sox Park that people are reselling tickets for $1,200. I got an invite to be front row. I mean, I just do what I do. Anyway, really, nobody here was expecting it. And all of a sudden, this global story is ours. And I am really grateful to all of the journalists who jumped on it, who provided context. And in a macro way, we wonder, is Chicago and Dalton going to become a center for Pope tourism? But in a very real human way, we hope that this suburb, that this village, that this town of about 20,000 people gets what it deserves, gets the not only the eyes for a moment, but gets the investment to like rebuild for generations to come. And so, we hope Pope Mania isn't just like memes and Malort jokes, but also something very substantial for the people of this community.
There was literally a Malort joke in the chat just now, Jacoby. So Jacoby,
I didn't see it.
Dalton part of Chicago, or it's a suburb? I'm unclear.
It's a village right on the opposite side of the far south side border. And in Chicago, like, there was this conversation people tried to start of like, oh, look at Chicago trying to claim suburbs all of a sudden, when it never likes to claim its suburb and likes to remind people that they're not from the city. That's not how it works for the far south suburbs. It's different, right? It's not the far west suburbs of like Naperville or northwest like Schaumburg. Like Dalton right across, again, has a very similar story to the divestment of the far south side of Chicago. Many of the people who live there have deep roots and connections to the city. And so it's a lot different. And again, his parish was technically in Chicago. His birth certificate, he was born in, formerly known as Mercy Hospital in Chicago. And so we get to claim it, but we also are having a real nuanced conversation about what this could be.
This is Trinae in Philly. Jacoby, we have a joke in Philly's. You mentioned like the claiming suburbs or not claiming suburbs. The Pope actually went to Villanova, which is in a Philadelphia suburb. And so we've often joked like, should we claim Villanova when that school is doing well in sports? But we also have a joke that possibly we have a Pope that went to Wawa. Wawa is better, Megan.
I don't know why you're always trying to fight, Trinae. Pittsburgh's here. We're ready.
Now back to more contentious stories of city living. Probably the most universal story in all of CityCast is the cost of housing. It's about cities becoming unaffordable. Bianca Martin, host of CityCast Madison, you're going to talk about that in 1 second. But I thought we would just get a survey of the country first. So I asked each of you, what would it cost to rent a decent, good 2-bedroom apartment in a good neighborhood, like not the best apartment, not the best neighborhood, but good apartment, good neighborhood in your city? So we're going to go in reverse alphabetical order. Salt Lake.
Probably $2,500 a month.
Portland.
$2,500 for sure.
Pittsburgh.
Like 1,800?
Philly.
18 to 21.
Nashville.
2,100.
Madison.
2,400.
Las Vegas.
1,700.
Houston.
About 1,800.
Denver.
2,300.
DC.
Jeez, I got to move. Like 3,000, 3,200.
Chicago.
I reject the terms good and decent, but I'm going to say something like 19 to 2,200.
Boise.
2,000 easy.
Austin.
I'd say 2,200 to 2,500.
Interesting. So there's nothing that was like super low, that's for sure. And DC seems to be an outlier at the higher end, although that may just be Mike's fancy taste, Mike Schaefer's fancy taste.
I've ran this past our entire CityCast crew.
All right. So it's not just Mike Schaefer's fancy taste. So Bianca, you wanted to start us off on this topic because it sounds like you have a situation in Madison where your own elected officials literally cannot afford to live in the city.
Yes, Madison is in a housing crisis. And this year's spring election, it wasn't just residents raising the flag about their housing costs. It literally was elected officials being priced out. So the rent is too damn high, even for local officials. So the backstory, one Dane County supervisor whose district was downtown Madison resigned this spring prompting a special election that's actually happened this week because she couldn't afford to live downtown. And then one Madison Common Council member, who's famous for being Madison's first openly transgender alder, also suspended her spring campaign, to much ado, because she couldn't find affordable housing on the east side. And you have to live in your district. So that alder was nonetheless, this is kind of spicy, still elected to her seat because her name couldn't be removed from the ticket legally, which was wild. So she ultimately accepted the role. But the bigger question here is, what does it mean when housing costs are affecting who can even represent you, right? So Madison's predicament is not a secret. I'm sure a lot of y'all's cities are facing the same thing. We're an attractive place. It's a university town. We're designated kind of like a climate change haven with a pretty high standard of living. But we are rapidly growing in population, and construction just simply has not kept up with population growth. That will continue to be a challenge, too, considering Madison is projected to grow by nearly 40% over the next 25 years. So the city is very aware of this issue and stepping in to ensure that we're creating more supply and building density. But in the meantime, the character of the city and residents' rent and future living here is at stake.
This is Lindsay from Boise. Bianca, I'm curious. An issue we're facing here is that so many people moved from places like Seattle and Southern California to Boise, and that just raised prices astronomically. Is this an issue where you just don't have enough housing, or have people from other places with higher price points really driven up prices there?
We definitely just don't have enough housing. That's for sure. I think that we kind of got behind the ball when there wasn't a housing crisis. That said, like our old producer on CityCast Madison moved from Oakland, California, where he'd been forever, to come to Madison. Like, it is in the middle of the country. Like, climate disasters are real on the coast, and we are seeing definitely an interest, I think, from the coastal regions, like moving into our city as well.
This is Megan in Pittsburgh. I'm actually like so shocked by this because Madison is considered like the beacon that's doing it right for us. And we don't have any of that population growth. We were just celebrating because we grew 0.2% this year. And that was like a big deal. But we still don't have enough housing. And we're looking at Madison as like, you guys have the solution.
Well, we do. We're working on the solution. But I'll say, like, just that 40% growth, we're like at, 270,000 right now. In 25 years, adding 150,000. Like, we are not getting any more land. We're on an isthmus. We're between two lakes. You can't build on the lakes, really. So the city has a ton of solutions and are really trying to get ahead of just the forces at play, right? So the city is like cutting red tape around building codes, trying to find ways to simplify zoning standards, pursuing code changes to promote the different kinds of buildings. The problem is, as we started, David pointed out, single family homes, people love their neighborhoods. It's so cute for a reason, but guess what? Like, more people are coming and there's not enough housing. So the city itself is building housing. The Community Development Authority is experimenting with building condos because they're not seeing private industry like building the kind of denser housing options that are going to help us in this moment. And rents are just like crazy. It's just becoming an unhealthy housing market.
All right, we're going to continue this in another city just to the south of you. So Marie Cecile Anderson, host of CityCast Nashville. Nashville has gentrified like crazy. It has grown like crazy and gentrified like crazy. It turns out by some measure you've gentrified more than any city in America. What does that mean? Why does it matter?
We win. We win. Oh, it matters, David. Well, so yeah, there's a new study out that says that Nashville is dealing with the most intense gentrification in the country. So yeah, why Nashville? Gentrification happens everywhere. I personally think it has to do with the ABC hit television drama Nashville. Remember that show, y'all? It came out in 2012. Loved it. Connie Britton, best actress ever. I was obsessed.
Future second wife, possibly, Connie Britton.
Yeah. That hair. Oh, perfect hair. Anyway, it was a huge hit, as we know. So during that time, GQ called Nashville Nowville. Ugh, makes me throw up. New York Times called us the It City. And then because of this, people started flocking to Nashville. But here's the thing. We have zero rent control. We have hardly any tenant protections. Our zoning and building codes are hopelessly outdated. Tourism is booming. I can no longer even go to my favorite music venue without the tourists buying up the tickets before I even have a chance. Luxury developers are swarming, but we do not have enough homes for ordinary Nashvillians anymore. So historically, Nashville has been a pretty affordable southern city, but we're still dealing with the legacy of segregation. So according to a new study from our Metro Planning Department, 99% of our neighborhoods are considered unaffordable for the median Black or Hispanic family. And listen up, Vegas, we can beat you. We need to build at least 90,000 new homes over the next 10 years to even come close to closing this gap. Honestly, a lot of people here are asking if our identity as a city is getting lost in all this, because all of a sudden we've become this weird mashup of Californians and conservative Christians coming together. And me as an OG Nashvillian, I don't want to toot my own horn, but like people like me, we built Nashville, we built this international brand, but we can't afford to stay.
Marisa, so you pointed out something which I was amazed by, which is that, so you would think the city is growing, enormous tax revenue boom, so you could build, streetcars on every street and every school would be gold plated. But you have a state law that forbids this?
That's right. We have a thing called truth in taxation. The state Republicans call this law truth in taxation, in case you want a new tattoo, which means that property tax rate has to be adjusted to stay revenue neutral. So if your property value goes up, the tax rate has to go down. Does that make sense?
And so all this new growth does not give the city any more money?
Nope, we're not seeing it.
That's messed up.
Yeah. All right, we have just a couple more cities to hit. And I want to talk about another theme that we hear from all of you, or from many of you, especially from our cities that are in redder states. You touched on this a little bit, Marisa Seal, but I want to go to Boise, to Lindsay Van Allen, host of CityCast Boise, where you also have fights with your Republican legislators who oversee the state. And it sounds like you all just had an interesting fight over the pride flag.
Yeah, David. These days, it feels incredibly rare for a blue city in a red state to actually win a culture war, but Boise may have just pulled it off. Earlier this year, Idaho's Republican-controlled legislature passed a law banning non-official U.S., state, or city flags from being flown at public buildings. And this law was specifically created to target the city of Boise, who has been flying a pride flag at City Hall for over a decade. The legislator who wrote the bill added an emergency clause so that the law would be enforced as soon as it was signed into law. But they forgot to add an enforcement mechanism. So technically, there was no consequence if the city of Boise didn't comply. Boise's mayor, Mayor McLean, opted to keep the pride flag up even after the state's attorney general and the Ada County sheriff sent her a strongly worded letter. And things escalated Easter weekend when one night, far-right provocateurs scaled the flagpole at City Hall, covered the pride flag with a trash bag, and installed an Appeal to Heaven flag. The mayor herself came to City Hall on Easter morning to take down the trash bags and re-raise the pride flag. Then Boise City Council made their checkmate move. They passed a resolution officially designating the pride flag as a city flag. It's a clever legal workaround that brought them in compliance with the letter of the law while defying the law's intent. So now the pride flag flies legally. The right is fuming, and Boise may have created a playbook for other progressive cities stuck in conservative states.
Nikki from Austin, I am taking notes. Texas is always on our butts about our pride flag. That is my kind of petty. I love that.
Allie here at Salt Lake, we actually did literally copy your playbook and just raised 4 new flags in Salt Lake City. We adopted a pride flag, a trans pride flag, and a Juneteenth flag that are now official flags of Salt Lake City. And it was exciting for us because I don't know about your mayor, but our mayor tends to play a little bit nicer with the Utah legislature. And I think people were really thrilled to see her stick it to them. It felt unusual and exciting.
Oh, same, Allie. It seems like we're always caught between a rock and a hard place. And so the mayor tries to play nice in the hopes that we'll be targeted less. And it seems like this was just a bridge too far. And this is where She drew a line in the sand and said no more. And the pressure was on. Like, the far right was livid. The attacks were harsh, and we prevailed.
Bianca here in Madison. We're having a situation in Wisconsin. Like, our governor ordered the pride flag to be flown above our state, and that's been happening. But our state historical society, in a controversial move, just went against their own tradition, and their CEO said, not this year. And the staff's not happy. A staff person said leadership framed the move as like flying the pride flag would be political, and we're not a political organization. Meanwhile, this announcement came like right after state Republicans on the Joint Committee of Finance planned to slash parts of the governor's budget, including money for the society's new history center. So, like, things are afoot and people are losing funding and people are towing the line before the line comes to them.
Yeah, we've had a lot of preemptive compliance within Idaho. So it has been really heartening for our Boise mayor to say, come at us, like this is where we're going to stand. And as someone who lives in Boise, but in this super red state, it is so rare, but has really, especially leading up to Pride Month, really lit a spark in our community.
And they will come at you, Allie, again here in Salt Lake. I feel like our big joke here is anything you do that feels fun or cool, next year the legislature will pass a bill to make it illegal. Yep. So it's like become like, oh, do you like that beer? It'll be illegal next year. Oh, do you like, because it's just, that's the game. Like, they're vengeful. It's exhausting.
Oh, Allie, we have the same joke in Boise where the minute we're doing something fun or we're like, don't tell the legislature, don't tell anybody you don't absolutely trust because it will be illegal by next January.
Yep.
I want to end with the city that started it all. Let's go back to the birthplace of America.
Heck yeah.
And an issue that also affects a lot of our cities, which is tourism and how it divides a city. And so Trenae Nari, host of CityCast Philly, we've heard from you already. But your city is counting down to July 4th, 2026, the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And it's a blue city that is unhappy with maybe the redder manifestation of how this I don't even know what sesquicentennial maybe is going to be.
Semi-quincentennial.
Oh, semi-quincentennial. So what's happening in Philly with this celebration, and is it going to be a source of tension?
Okay, so Philly is supposed to be the tourist epicenter of the country next year. We got the MLB All-Star Game coming through, World Cup, NCAA tournament, and this special semi-quincentennial of America. Big party, 250th year, right? We got some issues, y'all. Some Philadelphians are pointing to the fact that there's not much word on a major public works project. So in the past, let's see, at the 150th anniversary, we got a new stadium, the Ben Franklin Bridge, which connects us to New Jersey. For the 200th birthday, we got a museum, a concert arena. But as far as we know it today, no big projects on the horizon. Yeah, they're going to be painting the Independence Hall. There's a citywide and statewide art installations are popping up, and they're going to make the Rocky statue shinier. But another wrinkle in all of this is that in the backdrop, we have a looming funding crisis within SEPTA. That's our city's transit agency. If there isn't a financial bailout for our more than $200 million deficit by the end of this month, there are going to be cuts to 45% of our bus and train service. That means canceled bus and train routes, layoffs, and we are in a divided state legislature, and they have 10 days to approve the funding to save SEPTA from major service cuts. So many Philadelphians are wondering how the system could even handle the nearly million visitors scheduled to come into the city in about 13 months. And SEPTA itself says they won't be able to handle the influx of hundreds of people for our big events. So we got some issues when it comes to all of this. Of course, our city leadership and leaders in the tourism sectors are optimistic about 2026, but I'm not so much.
So it's not so much a red-blue issue. It's a kind of infrastructure issue. You welcome whoever comes.
Yeah, of course. You're always welcome in Philly, but our president might have some beef with us. He targeted us because we are a sanctuary city and then listed us on this list and then delisted us. So who knows what that's going to be like.
This is Megan in Pittsburgh. Just a little more context here. Philly is probably extra screwed because it's not just Philly and SEPTA that are going through this crisis. It's all 67 counties in Pennsylvania, including Pittsburgh. We have a $100 million deficit. We're looking at 40% across the board cuts. We are all broke. Every transit system in Pennsylvania is busted right now, and they are all asking for money this cycle. And SEPTA got money last year from the state. None of the rest of us did. So everyone's hands are out right now, and I think that's just going to hurt Philly's case for the next year.
Raheel in Houston here, and we're a World Cup city as well and operating at a deficit with our city's budget. And it just seems like across the board, it's like the vibes. That's it. Like, we'll figure it out. Like, come on, the vibes are great. FIFA, World Cup. Come on, y'all. It's a global event. We'll figure this out. No. Every city, it seems like, is kind of screwed in all of this.
This is Lindsay from Boise. Y'all states fund public transit. We don't give any money to public transit here.
That does it for this amazing all hosts episode of CityCast. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for listening. If you have friends or family living in another CityCast city, please tell them about the great podcast in their hometown. So bye-bye, CityCast hosts from Austin and Boise and Chicago and Denver and DC and Houston and Las Vegas and Madison, Nashville and Philly and Pittsburgh and Portland and Salt Lake and soon Seattle and the Twin Cities.
See y'all later.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. And Boise.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
I said Boise. We'll be back on Monday with a regular episode of your local CityCast.
Next, all hosts, can we just finally have the showdown that we all want, which is Philly and Pittsburgh, and we just all decide together which one's the best city?
I had jokes written in here and I couldn't get my
would
jokes
love
in.
it.